Hello everybody and welcome to the highlights of Game 4 of the World Chess Championship 2016. Magnus Carlsen, the reigning champion, against the challenger Karjakin. So this is the highlight video. I'm just going to give you the main points of the game. If you want to watch the full analysis, just click on the link in the description. There I cover the whole game. It's much longer, but here I'm focusing on, well, the highlights. So let's get right to it. Game 4, Karjakin with the white pieces and started out just like in Game 2 with e4, and once again we have a Roy Lopez, but a different variation, and we're entering the position here, and it's quite a sharp Roy Lopez. You can see white is ready to strike or do something at least on the king side, and black is also positioned a knight here on c4. It's white to move, and white took the pawn on h6, which is hanging here, because if g takes h6, well, white picks up the knight on f6, and the black king position is also bad. But Carlsen had seen this coming, and he played a good move, queen c6, which for one defends the knight on f6, so now the bishop is hanging on h6, and for the other is attacking this pawn e4 once more, and black will win back the pawn the next move. And here Karjakin shocked, well, I don't want to say everybody, but a lot of people. He took the knight on c4, which is a crime to many Roy Lopez players, because this bishop is really a key piece in the white position. It's a strong piece and you don't just want to give it up for the knight. So this was definitely a positional mistake Karjakin committed. He should have gone all the way back to c1, protect the pawn on b2, and also leave the e3 square open for the knight. It has to be said though, while this is definitely a better position than what happened in the game, black has the initiative here, can go rook a8, bring the last piece into action, and if knight hg4, play queen g6, and it looks quite intimidating. Maybe somehow Karjakin was afraid of these lines, but he needs to go for this, because what happened in the game is just much worse, whereas here white is close to equality. After bishop takes c4, b takes c4, now the bishop is still attacked, moves back, knight takes e4, we have this position, black has regained the pawn, and it doesn't really matter that much that he has double pawns here on the c-file. What matters is that black has a very strong bishop on a long diagonal, which doesn't have a counterpart. And that also means he has the bishop pair, as well as a half open b-file he can use and target this weak pawn on b2. So these are all trumps speaking for black, and for white there's just not that much to do. He cannot target this pawn c4 easily, he has less space, so this is not looking good. The queens came off a little bit earlier, and we'll actually go much further. We're going to go into this position, which was another very critical moment. So you can see a lot of material has been exchanged, but still the status quo has not changed. Black is still much better. Why is that? He has the bishop pair. Let's make those guys green, which is just a huge asset in the endgame. And he has a majority here on the king side, is able to create a passed pawn at some point, because 2 against 1, whereas the white pawns here are just completely blocked by the pawn on c4. White will never be able to build a passed pawn here, and doesn't have any counterplay in this position, so it's just black pressing as long as he wants to, and white just has to somehow withstand the pressure. Karjakin was able to do that in the last game, and the question was, would he be able to do it again? Well, we will find out. Here, in fact, he made a mistake. Or at least it is a step in the wrong direction at the very least. Well, I would call it a mistake. He played king e2. White needs to regroup his pieces to be perfectly prepared when black pushes for these pawns. And the best way to do it was to bring this knight from h3 to d4 by going knight g1. And if now g5, then the knight will land on d4. And here I could not find a way for black to make any progress, because And the problem is if you go forward, well, there's just a check and you have to go back. And otherwise, you want to go g4. Like I said, you want to create a passed pawn at some point, but it's just not that easy to go g4 because you need to keep this pawn protected on f4. And how do you do it? Not easy. So we can make some moves here. Bishop b6, king f2, bishop a8. Now, not king g1, because then indeed black could go king g3. There's no knight e2 check anymore, and black would pick up this pawn, so that's no good. But just bishop e7, keeping an eye on this pawn now. And now you can go king g1, and well, I don't see any way for black to make progress. Maybe there is a way, but it looks like this is holding for white. Probably what Karjakin was afraid of, potentially, was the move bishop g5, aiming to go to c1, but here also white can defend, I think, just going bishop c5, and if bishop c1, just king e1, the idea is if black takes on b2, this bishop is going to be trapped, so that's no good for black. The bishop will be, well, lost sooner or later. And if king g4, then knight e2, pushing the bishop away, and well, we just saw bishop takes b2 is no good. And if bishop g5, just king f2, and we will probably see a similar setup here for white with the knight on d4. But of course black can try a lot. This is not an easy draw by any means, and not a position anybody would like to play against Carlsen, who's so good in converting these little edges. But this seems to me to be a much better setup than what Karjakin did. Because after king e2, now g5, and now Karjakin moves the knight, but this move is definitely a mistake. It could be that the position is already lost anyway, but still I think it would have been better to go knight g1 once again. But here black is able to get g4 in, because, well, he can play with tempo and protect the pawn f4, and I can't give a conclusive statement here because I just don't know, but it feels to me this position is winning for black. Well, this did not happen. Karjakin went knight f2, and here Carlsen had a great chance to win, or to get a position, a winning position at least. Still a lot of work to be done, but here bishop d5 was very strong. Carlsen played king g6 instead, which was a human move, natural move to get the king over there, but bishop d5 in this particular moment is possible because after g3, black can go g4. And the point here is, g4 first looks strange, right? Why would you give white this blockade here? Well, the point is that the knight is now trapped on f2, since if knight d1, black can actually go into this I almost made it myself here, but can go into this position, and this bishop endgame is just winning for black because the king is coming in, and black also has the possibility to create a passed pawn by going f4 at some point. Just no hope for white. That means that in fact white ends up in a Zugzwang position at some point. If we make a couple of moves here, the bishop comes to f3 and now king g6, and already it is a Zugzwang, because if the king goes to c2, black plays bishop g5, and here white would like to be able to keep the blockade going by going king e3. That's not possible now anymore. If the bishops come off, there's just f4 coming, and black creates this passed pawn, and if the bishop moves somewhere else, it's just bishop e3, game over. So seems to me this is just a Zugzwang, and white is losing. King e3 of course runs into bishop b6, and if the bishop moves, then the bishop is coming to g5, and that's also bad news for white. So instead here, well, you can try king f1, but now black can advance these pawns. The white position is very passive, and this just seems to be a matter of time here for black to win. So this was a great chance. After king g6, Karjakin once again showed what a tenacious defender he is. He played g4, and which is really his best chance to somehow create a fortress. And we'll see a couple more moves here. Bishop b6, bishop e3, bishop e5, a5, knight e1. Here, there's the last critical moment, you could say, in the game when Carlsen decided to go f4, which is definitely a mistake, because now the pawn structure is fixed, and it turns out that even though Black has the bishop pair and a nice protected pawn here, he has no way to break through the white position. White is able to set up a fortress, and that's it. So instead, Black should go bishop e6, also to defend against knight e3, when he can just answer f4 and take you on g4. And after knight f2, you probably at some point, you don't need to do it right now, you can also play differently, but at some point probably you need to take on g4. And white is going to hope to somehow keep the fortress like this, but well, I don't know personally if it holds, because Black always has this idea of going to the queen side, as he's doing now, and White probably has to go a4 to stop that, but now the pawn will fall on a4 and we'll have this position. And I mean, to my mind, this must be lost, but you know, in these days with computers, they can defend a lot of positions. But certainly this was the much better try, because here I'll just show you the setup that White chose, this one, and now it just keeps moving around. And we can go actually all the way forward to this position to just tell you what's going on here. Well, Black has improved his position as much as possible, but he cannot create any Zugzwang. White can always either move the king or the knight back and forth, and the bishop just stays on d4 and nothing is happening. Carlsen moved around a lot. Let me get you to one last moment where he tried something, which is here. He had played f3 and now he went bishop f4, but this doesn't help Black's chances either. And let's just go through the last moves real quick. Carlsen went over with the king again. White does the same thing, and now we see this position arising, and White will just keep his king on f2, and there's just absolutely nothing Black can do anymore. And the players agreed to a draw in the 94th move right here. So that was another marathon. Just like in the last game, Karjakin was able to escape, was able to defend, even though once again he was very close to losing. I think this particular moment in the 42nd move, when Black could have played bishop d5 with this idea g4, that would have been really strong. And well, Carlsen missed it, and once again Karjakin shows that he is the best defender in the world. But well, the good news is he drew this game, but the bad news is that he's getting bad positions and he cannot possibly defend every single game like that. At some point he will crack and he will lose a game. So Karjakin definitely has to change something there. Once again, if you want to see a full analysis, just click on the link in the description. And also if you want to be notified when I publish my analysis, you can just subscribe to my channel and then you will always get a notification. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed this highlight video, and I see you again next time. Goodbye.